Hey everyone, I'm Yemi Janae. Today we're going to talk about ET psyops. So, from Google AI, a psyop is a psychological operation which is a military and political activity that aims to influence the emotions and behaviors of individuals, organizations, and governments. So, PSYOPs uses unconventional tactics and expert communication skills to support the objectives of the military. And so in a sense, that is what it is. And anyone trying to influence the public in any way, shape, or form is a PSYOP. Farsight is a PSYOP. Yep. If you are public in any way whatsoever, and if you are trying to shift the society in any way by changing the way people think, you are a PSYOP. Political campaigns of any kind are PSYOPs. Religious organizations are often PSYOPs that sometimes uses things like the fear of burning in the fires of hell for eternity to control the masses. And on it goes. So the extraterrestrials are no different. They run their PSYOPs. Well, we at Farsight have long been studying extraterrestrials who try to influence or control the masses on Earth. They are all PSYOPs, ET PSYOPs, of course. Finally, we decided to take a look at two particular and very obvious PSYOPs, at least obvious to us, which are two authentic extraterrestrials who are channeled by two individuals. The extraterrestrials are Bashar and Jermaine. The humans who channel Bashar and Jermaine are Del Anka and Lisa Royale. Now, both Dara Anka and Lisa Royale are wonderful people. They are honest, they're sincere, hardworking, and truly trying to make a positive contribution to humanity. Moreover, their telepathic capabilities are phenomenal. We wish they could work with us here at Farsight, but the entities who they channel, Bashar and Jermaine, run very sophisticated PSYOPs on this planet, in our humble opinion. We have numerous reasons for thinking this, but one of the primary reasons is the story that they have stated that is supposed to be the history of extraterrestrials, often called the Greys. In our opinion, this story is an attempt to rewrite history to prevent humanity from knowing the real background of those extraterrestrials who control planet Earth right now. This is very, very similar to those who try to rewrite Earth's history by saying that the World War II Holocaust never happened. And we have all heard the saying that history is written by the victors of the war. When bad things happen, one of the things that perpetrators of those bad things do is to tell people those bad things never happened. Or if worse comes to worse, they say that someone else did it. This type of PSYOPs happens in every single culture and on every planet. Well, the PSYOP story of the Greys has been told often, and a really good summary of this story can be found in Chapter 1, History of the Zeta Reticuli, found in the book Visitors from Within by Lisa Royale. Both Bashar and Jermaine have spoken about this story. We focus on this particular story as a PSYOPs because we have done a full project at Farsight on the history of the Greys, and we now know exactly from our own work how that species came to exist. But the channeled story basically goes something like this. The Greys were much like us humans, and perhaps they were even future humans, and they destroyed their environment on their home world in a parallel reality to our own. They had to move underground to escape their toxic environment. Feeling guilty, they fiddled with their genes to enable them to exist underground, which included making their bodies smaller and no longer having live birth. Because of their sense of guilt at having destroyed their environment due to their emotions and greed, they changed their brains so that they would not feel emotions like we do. After a long time, they emerged from their subterranean environment and found that their planet had shifted dimensionally, and they were no longer a species that could survive for much longer due to the changes they made with their genetics. So they went to the Galactic Federation to get permission to do genetic experiments on humans. and to try to splice human DNA into gray DNA to make a hybrid society so they could move into new bodies for a new future. Sounds crazy and pretty awesome. Thus, humans would genetically give birth to a new race of hybrids, and we are supposed to be proud that we saved an entire race from extinction. This story sounds all nice, but the trouble is that it never happened. From our own research done here at Farsight using highly trained remote viewers working under completely blind conditions, we obtained multiple corroborating reports that indicated that the precursors of the Greys were not a species that destroyed their environment. In fact, they were fine with their environment. Rather, what really happened was that they were attacked and enslaved. A military force controlled by the same reptilians who currently run Earth as a prison planet attacked and conquered their very human-like civilization and essentially enslaving their entire population. Remember that every biological being in the universe is actually a composite being with a physical body and what we at Farsight call an ISB. We use the word ISB because we want to avoid all the religious baggage that the word soul and spirit carry. An ISB is a person who is simply for the purpose of being. We are all ISBs. The civilization that was conquered by the reptilians was enslaved. And their ISBs were essentially stuffed into new bodies, the bodies that we identify as Greys today. They were designed to be a total subservient group who could be used to do horrific things to others without feeling any empathy for the victims. Slaves who could not feel emotions were perfect for doing things to others where strong emotions would be involved. And such slaves were perfect for use in a human abduction program on Earth designed to create human hybrid children who would serve all sorts of other purposes for their new masters. Our study is very convincing, especially since we collected the data all by ourselves. All reports across all remote viewers are essentially the same. All corroborating reports where all data were collected under scientifically defensible blind conditions. So the story told by Bashar and Jermaine were just part of a psyop. A story told to cover up the real background of the groups who were doing terrible things to people here on Earth. It is because of experiences such as this that we at Farsight do not trust channeled information. The human channels can be the best and most wonderful people in the planet, but the entities who enter their bodies and control their voices can have hidden motives, hidden agendas, and one simply cannot trust them to take over and run things. And when a human channel lets such an entity control their mind and body, they're not in a position to properly vet these entities. They don't do job interviews with these entities. There is no proper background check. They take everything at face value, and they're easy targets for exploitation. On the extraterrestrial side of things, the extraterrestrials such as Bashar and Jermaine appear to have strong support organizations. They're obviously not working alone. Whatever they are broadcasting from, they have big organizations pulling the strings and supplying the juice. And they are good at what they do. They obviously have tremendous training in sounding innocent and convincing. But in our view, based on our own research, they are not what they seem to be. They have an unspoken agenda. And let me repeat that the human channels who work with Bashar and Jermaine are innocent of everything. They're good, honest, and sincere, hardworking people who are trying to make a positive contribution. They have amazing telepathic capabilities that we would love to work with at Farsight. If they have any fault at all, perhaps it's that they're a bit gullible. But gullibility is not unique to channels. We all want to trust people who sound nice, and personalities such as Bashar and Jermaine are experts in sounding nice. Indeed, professionals. And like the proverbial used car salesman says, there's a sucker born every minute. And we all suffer from this from time to time, especially when we feel pain and we want to believe in a nice sounding voice. And of course, all this is just our opinion. You are free to have your own opinion about Bashar and Jermaine, and we respect that. But I am jumping the gun here talking about the interpretation of the results before you have seen the actual data. So let's do that first. But before we do that, I want to make a comment about us here at Farsight. We do not want you to follow us blindly. Rather, we want all of our audience to be independent thinkers. If there's anything that characterizes the Farsight contribution, it is that we are not special. Anything we can do, you can do, and probably better. We do consider ourselves a group who can speak authoritatively about the activities of the extraterrestrials, both the good ETs and the bad ETs. But by no means should this be interpreted to mean that we are the only group who can interact with the ETs. We feel certain that if Farsight ever positioned itself as the one and only source for you to get accurate information about the extraterrestrials, then the good extraterrestrials would pretty much stop supporting us and they would drop us like a rock. The entire underlying purpose of all that we do here is to show people how to free themselves from this present planet. And following any one source as an absolute truth is the surest way to lose your way. As our audience, your job is to make us obsolete and for you to communicate with the extraterrestrials directly. You don't need us to go between. The good ETs definitely do not want Farsight or anyone else to stand between you and them. The big thing on our side in terms of methodology is to have a quiet mind. That is why we emphasize meditation before we do anything at Farsight. So if you learn anything from Farsight, let it be quiet the mind and listen. Remember that all Farsight projects are done totally blind using instrument blinding protocols, which you can read about on our website, farsight.org. We consider this superior to blind or double blind since it enables our viewers to work solo. Solo and blind is best. Farsight remote viewers know nothing about the target or the nature of the project when they do their sessions and when they conduct their video sessions completely alone in the studio. Now, all remote viewing sessions have a target. Since all remote viewing work done at Farsight is done blind, the viewers obviously do not know what the target is when they're doing their work. But you need to know the target when you watch them describe their data so that you can follow along. For this project, the target has two focuses. Focus 1 is Bashar when being channeled in mid-September 2024 by Daryl Anka in Sedona, Arizona. In these sessions, we are interested in learning more about Bashar, but about his ultimate supervisor, like who is his boss. Focus 2 is similar, and that is Jermaine at the time he was channeled through Lisa Royale, during the time used to record the information contained in Chapter 1, History of the Zeta Reticuli, found in the book Visitors from Within. Similarly, we want to know not only more about Jermaine, but also about his ultimate supervisor, his boss. We will put text on the screen for you to follow when you see the sessions. So let's dive in. Starting with a session by Intisam and then Aziz Brown, myself, and finally Shantae. This is Bashar, Jermaine, and their ultimate supervisors. Also, remember that both Bashar and Jermaine probably have more than one supervisor. In your own life, don't you have more than one supervisor or person up the chain of command at your job? So when you see these session data, expect some variation among the remote viewers when they hone in on the supervisors for Bashar and Jermaine, since there can be more than one supervisor for each person. And in this project, we are not trying to prove or disprove the content of their channeling, nor are we trying to show that they are devils or angels. They are experts at presenting themselves as angels, so to speak. So their personalities and content are always going to sound nice, even to a remote viewer. The accuracy of their content is best accomplished with remote viewing projects that target specific events, which we've done elsewhere. And if you are happy followers of Bashar and Jermaine, we believe in free will and we respect your decision to believe what you want. Here in this project, we are simply trying to find out more about the people themselves and their supervisors. So even if you are happy followers of Bashar and Jermaine, and even if you want to stay happy followers, this project may still be of interest to you. Now, I want to mention something that is crucial to remember. So please remember this when you watch these sessions. We really don't know much about Bashar and Jermaine. And they are almost certainly not single personalities. And we don't know if those personalities are the same each time there's a channeling. Meaning, the personalities coming through the human channels can change from session to session, or even within a session, and the human audiences would not be able to know simply by listening to the human channel. Just because the personalities sound the same with each channeling, that does not mean that they are the same actual beings. Also, these personalities are clearly not working alone. Bashar and Jermaine have impressive support organizations. It seems almost certain that the personalities coming through the telepathic communications are in fact a mixture of voices coming from more than one being. These are highly advanced extraterrestrial civilizations that we're dealing with here, and we don't understand how they're organizing themselves. I want to remind everyone of the Abraham entity that has been channeled by Esther Hicks. Abraham is self-admittedly a collective entity, not a single person. But when you listen to Esther Hicks, it sounds like it's one person. So it's very possible, perhaps very likely, that both Bashar and Jermaine could also actively be a collection of different personalities. Also, it seems almost certain that an AI intelligence would be used to smooth out the perception of the personalities so that there are no glitches. I want to encourage everyone to stop thinking of Bashar and Jermaine as solitary people who are sitting somewhere on a spaceship having an interview conversation with a human audience on Earth. It is almost certain that the support organizations are heavily involved. If we at Farsight were running their psyops with all of their resources, that is exactly how we would run it. Psyops have numerous effects on a targeted population. And no PSYOPs organization would let a single personality handle it all by themselves. Too much is at stake to leave everything up to one person. Given this understanding, it is highly likely that the physical descriptions of both Bashar and Jermaine will vary across remote viewers. One remote viewer might perceive Bashar to look one way, and another remote viewer may perceive Bashar to look differently. And that's the same with Jermaine. The remote viewers are free to focus on any one person in the collectives that comprise Bashar and Jermaine. This should be expected of if those personalities are actually more than one, and if the smoothing is being done by an AI. But in terms of verifiables, Daryl Anka and Lisa Royale are clearly human, and we know who they are exactly. One male and one female. And we should expect the remote viewers to describe those people accurately in a way that the audience can verify. So think of this in the terms of religions. Our work at Farsight suggests that nearly all religions throughout time have been psyops. That is, extraterrestrials are involved in creating mystical experiences for human audiences. And those human audiences develop religions to transmit the ideas being conveyed by those extraterrestrials. This would be the same for Moses receiving the 10 Commandments from some ETs operating from a ship on the top of a mountain, as it would be for the ancient Greek and Roman gods, for example. Remember, from our research at Farsight, Zeus was actually a prison warden who spent his time flying around in his ship and raping underage girls in front of their families. He was not a god. He was a warden who took advantage of the psyops to exploit his prisoners. All those extraterrestrials were running psyops, very successful psyops, in the sense that the religions develop huge populations of devout followers. And those extraterrestrials were certainly using all sorts of technological tricks to make sure the watching humans were suitably amazed. So why would Bashar and Jermaine be any different? Let's be smart about this. Remember always that we are dealing with very advanced extraterrestrials operating very advanced psyops. Let's not act like children in the woods meeting a presumed tree fairy. If we take any advanced extraterrestrials who are communicating through human channels at face value, well, then we're stupid enough to deserve whatever we get. So let's be smart about it. Again, let's remember who we actually are dealing with. Here are sessions. Watch them closely. The similarities and the differences in the descriptions, they all matter.